Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. And is this Manic Monday? Miserable Monday? What in the F is going on with the Denver Broncos? Listen, we all expected they'd probably be winless, but to have no offense? It's shades of 2022. I don't even want to bring up the name of who was in charge then. Nate Hackett. It has been just awful for the Broncos. They have scored one offensive touchdown in 2 games. First time that's happened since 2006. What is going on? What is going on even deeper with Sean Payton's decision makings? The offense is offensive. The head coach, who's got a chance to be in the Hall of Fame, looks completely out of sorts. And now they go on the road for 2 games against Tampa Bay. Oh, yeah, they're undefeated. They just beat Detroit on the road. And the Jets, who beat the Titans. Yes, folks, that's why I told you winning that Pittsburgh game was such a big deal. Broncos staring at an 0-4 start. We're going to dig into the issues here of how it's one thing to lose. We understand building year. It's how they're losing that is becoming so perplexing, if not depressing, for Broncos country. So we're going to get into all that. Payton's decisions. Bo Nix's struggle. Where do they go from here? Can this defense save them? It's coming up after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto, it's personal. That's because it is. Listen, I've known Darby Hoggett for a better part of a decade. We traveled around the country watching our boys play travel baseball, and we talked a lot of Broncos. He told me, you need to do a Broncos podcast. I'm so thankful he did. I became his good friend. Many of his clients become Darby's good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the ones writing checks to you. So again, if you have been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work, give Darby's team a call. It's 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGET. Or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. Welcome back to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. I wrote about this latest Broncos loss in the Denver Post. You can see my column there where I say, listen, the only thing worse than the Broncos offense was Sean Payton's decision making. And we're going to get into that because Payton in the first 2 weeks has failed this team as much as any player. And that's saying something because offensively, there's been a lot of F grades in the losses to Seattle and the loss yesterday in the home opener to Pittsburgh. But let's start with the offense because that's the one that's most easily and it's tangible for those in Broncos country, those of you who are watching. And some of these statistics will give you an idea of just how bad it's been. The Broncos in 2 games have 14 3-and-outs. 12 of those 3-and-outs have ended with a punt. So 14, there's 2 where like the Seattle first drive where they don't get a first down and they kick a field goal. So 2 have ended in points. The other 12 are 3-and-outs. That's a problem. It's a problem because of 2 reasons. And Adam Troutman and I talked with him after the game about this. Sean Payton's offense, the way he is designing it, is this idea you stay on the field and it's like chapters in a book that then build on each other and allows you to better understand how the defense is attacking you. What are they trying to do? Well, when you're only on the field for 3 plays, you have about as much rhythm as Elaine Bennis dancing on Seinfeld. And that's what it looks like when he's calling these games. Everything feels disjointed. You're not getting into any rhythm. Run, run, pass, then go empty backfield, panic, pass, pass, pass. And the other issue with that, we have no playmakers. We've talked about this. Bo Nix has not played well. Again, you can like Bo Nix and admit it has been Tebow-esque. It's not been Bo Nix. It's been like Tebow Nix at times. And let's be honest here. It's been ugly. And that interception in the red zone yesterday was brutal. And whether it was a broken route or not, that was kind of symbolic of his first 2 games. I mean, he has had just 4 awful interceptions, has yet to throw a touchdown. I'm not giving up on Bo Nix, but he needs some help, and some of that's from the play caller. But the 3-and-outs, you can't stay on the field. So you get no rhythm offensively. And then the second part of that is what is going on with the fact that these personnel groups. I mean, you watch, it's 3 and 4 guys coming in every play. And because of these multiple personnel groups, I think that's causing them to get out of sync. And the thing is, it's multiple personnel groups, but it doesn't feel like you're upgrading. It's like C movie for C movie. Like for me, if you're going to go multiple personnel groups, it's with like a clear advantage of why this guy has to be in the game right now. It feels like at times we're trying to get guys their varsity letter. 3 guys went in. Now it's a shift change. 3 guys, you come out. Like, I don't understand the multiple personnel groups consistently. Even Payton admitted after the game. He said, quite honestly, I'm not sure if it's helping. Spoiler alert, it's not. Last year, when they were running into these same problems, they simplified things as well. And when we talk about the personnel groups, and that causes a little bit of time in between plays, the other thing is these plays in this West Coast offense that he is specifically running, his version of it, are so long that Bo Nix, by the time he reads these plays, so remember, it has to come from Payton into Bo Nix's helmet, and then Nix reads it off to the players in the huddle. By the time he's getting to the line of scrimmage, it's not leaving a lot of time to make adjustments and audibles. I think they need to simplify the verbiage. They did it for Russell Wilson last year. I mean, they forced Russell to wear the wristband. Bo's a smart guy. That's not the question. But I think they need to streamline not only the personnel groups. As Payton said, we got to look at who we're asking to do what. They've got to streamline the play calling. It's like with a restaurant. And I'll use that analogy because when Payton looks at this play sheet he has, it looks like a Waffle House menu. It is huge. And at Waffle House, you have like 90 dishes. Sometimes when you look at a restaurant, if you ever see like these rescue restaurant shows on the Cooking Channel, whatever, one of the first things they do is we're going to pick 10 items that we do really well, and that's our menu. We're going to simplify our wait staff. We're going to get to the menu. We're going to have a couple of specialties, and we're going to do 6 or 7 things, whatever it is. So it's because it's better to do like 7 to 10 things well than 35, 40 things terrible or average. And I feel like with the Broncos offensive time, it just feels like they're calling the game in a vacuum. There's no rhythm to it. They're not able to set anything up because that's what sequencing is like with pitching in baseball. You're setting up, I'm going to throw my curveball here with 2 strikes because when I get the second time through the lineup, I'm going to go change up. Well, you can't sequence in football if you can't get to certain plays. You've got to be able to set them up. They're not able to set anything up because every drive almost exists in this vacuum, this silo. So that's part of it. We're looking at the play calling itself, the personnel grouping, and the verbiage. That has to improve. There's just no excuse anymore. With Pete Carmichael there and Joe Lombardi, one of these guys that's known Sean forever has to be the truth serum in the room and say, Sean, we got to figure this out. Sean needs that. Like Gary Kuby was that for Mike Shanahan, the guy that could pull him aside and say, hey, this isn't working. I don't know if Sean has that guy on staff. He has a lot of people he trusts, and he loves to have around him from his days in New Orleans. But if you look, New Orleans has modernized their offense under Clint Kubiak. They're throwing out 44 points a game. Broncos are hoping to get like 44 yards and a half. Like they're going the other way. So I think you have to take a sobering look in the mirror in that way. And then now to the second part of this. And I jumped kind of the headlines off, and that's my fault. But Payton's questionable decisions. So we've just talked about an offense that has been brutal in terms of its effectiveness. So when you're operating with very little offense, the defense has played well enough to win these 2 games, but no margin for error. Payton has to be on his game. He's the guy that has a chance to go to the Hall of Fame. He is their most valuable player, like most experienced guy on the sideline over there. He's the most accomplished guy when you look at their sideline. He's got to be really good, and he hasn't been these first 2 weeks. Bo Nix dropping back 49 times against Seattle. I don't like it. It was another essentially 40 times against the Steelers. When you talk about, I saw only 1 design run, and he was their leading rusher again. But 1 design run with 2 sacks. So now you're right up around 40 times drop back, 49. So you're right at 89 dropbacks in 2 games against 2 really good defenses. Make it make sense. Like it doesn't make sense. So, but that's he's off his game for me. Like he's allowing the gravitational pull of wanting to pass to hurt him. And he doesn't seem to like get right now that he has to coach the team he has, not the team he wants. This isn't the Saints. Drew Brees isn't walking into the building. Michael Thomas is not. Alvin Kamara is not. Jimmy Graham is not. They're not. So how do I scheme it up? How do I create mismatches? And he's not doing it. And it's to the point where, and why yesterday was such a pivotal moment with some Broncos fans, is because Russ was there. And Russ, listen, Russ was in uniform, and I want to rip him for that, but he was in uniform as the emergency third quarterback, just like Zach Wilson was for the Broncos. But his decision to wear eye black as the emergency third quarterback is so cringy, but it wasn't any worse than the decision Sean Payton was making yesterday. And I want to go through a few of them. Number one, let's start at the end. And for those of you who didn't see that end, I understand because your retinas were probably bleeding from the first three quarters. You've been digging your eyes out with a rusted fork. I get it. And just a quick aside, do you realize in the 4 games without Russell Wilson, the 2 they benched him and the 2 since, the Broncos are averaging 14 points a game? Under Russ, they were 21.7. Those look like the salad days. I mean, we're all told Russ is the problem. Are we sure it's not the guy left behind? Like, Sean Payton's got to be better. Got to be better. Tangent aside. But Sean's decision-making. First, you don't run a play before the 2-minute warning. So that costs you a timeout. You only have 1 timeout left. You kick the field goal. You make it 13-6 with 1:56 remaining. You have time there, TV timeout. And it's the dynamic kickoff. But with the dynamic kickoff, there's still the wrinkle that if you're a trailing team in the fourth quarter, you can request to do an onside kick. You're telling the other team, but you can still do it. It's not great. The percentage play isn't great. I understand that. But if you are watching the Broncos offense, they have 1 timeout left, 1:56 remaining. You're going to have to kick off. You're going to lose a few seconds there or whatever it is. Why would you not onside kick? Just simple math. Because the best case scenario, if you don't do an onside kick, was to get the ball back at 25 seconds at likely around your 20-yard line. What would tell you about your offense on this day that makes you think you could drive 80 yards for a touchdown? Absent of a Hail Mary trick play. There's nothing about your offense that suggests you could do that. So why not onside kick? And so, you don't get it. Who cares? You're going to lose anyway. But if you get the onside kick, you get it at midfield with 1:52 or 1:48 remaining. Now it's a regular drive to go win a game. And if you don't get it, again, what does it matter? They still could end up punting, and you get it back. They can put it through the end zone. There's no guarantee on the onside kick they're going to score. They're going to run 3 times, so you probably still get it back with 20 to 25 seconds left. And this time at your own 20. So to me, there was almost zero reason not to onside kick. It was just indefensible in the moment, given where they were offensively in this game. And Payton explained it in a way that just made no sense, that I didn't understand. And I want to read you his quote in full. And maybe you guys have a better kind of take on it. I didn't understand what he was saying after the game. And because he was asked directly about it, and I want to read it to you. Here's his explanation of the onside kick. And I quote, "We spent a lot of time going through it back and forth. We had plenty of time to discuss it. There was a player down. The long run on third down prior to them punting took about 6 seconds. We were hopeful to have 2 or 3 plays before we went to the end of the game. It was just weighing the odds versus recovering an onside kick or getting the ball back with 26 seconds. We chose to kick off." What? What in the world is that? I don't even know what that means. And I'm not being sarcastic. Okay, if you do get it back, perfect scenario, 26 seconds, which you didn't, you got it back at 9 seconds left. You're still having to try to go 80 yards with an offense that makes every yard look hard right now. So it's indefensible. It's an indefensible decision for a team and a coach that can't have bad days. Like, he can't. They're not good enough. to overcome mistakes by the head coach. And it wasn't his only bad decision. It wasn't. And what's crazy about that, if you remember, how did last season start, 2023? Payton, riverboat gambler, he's onside kicks the first thing of the season. And then we get into year 2 in the home opener, so essentially an exact calendar year difference. And he went from putting it all on 17 on the roulette machine to the year later, like, let's try to win this game with the penny slots. We're going to cash in on the penny slots. What? Whatever. But it wasn't his only questionable decision. If it were, it's like you can almost have it's more easily forgiven. But it wasn't. Think back to the first half in similar circumstances. 2:32 remaining. Broncos 4th and 7 on the Steelers' 39-yard line. You're all watching. I'm in the press box. Will Lutz he wants to kick. He's kind of on the sideline, pacing like a puma. He wants to go out. Payton doesn't like the idea. They talked all week about winning the field position game. He feels like too long a kick, 57-yarder. Field position's more valuable. We're not going to kick. We're going to punt. So he runs the punt team out. Okay, I'm not crazy about the decision, but I understand it. Then Pittsburgh coach Mike Tomlin calls timeout. It was as if he was double daring Payton. And Payton falls for it. Pittsburgh calls timeout. Broncos reconvene, and here comes the offense. Like, okay, now we're going for it. I would have kicked a field goal then, but now we're going for it. And everything about that play on 4th and 7 stunk. I mean, everything. There's pressure. Bo Nix throws it right into a defender's arm. His footwork is off, which has been an issue. He's throwing off his back foot, slinging it with bad arm angle. And rookie Troy Franklin, even if he had caught it, he's well short of the first down. I mean, if that's my play, throw 5 yards in front of the sticks, why not just kick it? I like Will Lutz's chance to make it field goal there rather than a 4th and 7 play to a rookie at that point who has no receptions in his career. I just, again, Payton knows the odds. Like, he understands this stuff, and it just, he's out of rhythm. So they go into halftime, no points. And he got baited into that decision where you could have kept it at a certain number, and instead you go from 7-0. Not only do you not kick it, it ends up costing you 3 points on the back end because they drive down and get a field goal after you go for it on 4th and 7. Again, this is coaching. He got out coached. Go with your gut. If your gut says punt, punt. Go into halftime down 7-0. Or trust your field goal kicker, who's been one of your better players, frankly, the last year and a half, to kick it. Door number 3 was the worst option, which was to go for it on 4th and 7 with an offense that's been terrible. And then you call a play where even if he catches it, he's not getting the first down. Again, make it make sense. So that's what I'm talking about in the decision-making of Payton. It's got to be better. He needs to simplify the offense, simplify the personnel. For the love of God, and this will be the last thing I say about his decision-making, you've got to give some guys a different look. I mean, Mims had 9 snaps. Franklin had 12. I'm not even going to argue the Mims thing right now anymore. It's clearly that they don't see the fit with Mims. They don't throw deep. They did throw deep once to him, but they don't really throw deep. The fit's not there, whatever. So you moved up to the second round to take a returner. I think we just all need to live with that right now. It's not changing with Mims. Franklin looks like he might start getting more run, but who knows if Vele comes back this week, what that looks like. But Tyler Beatty in the second quarter bursts 16 yards. 1 carry, 16 yards. The run game finally has a little life, a little juice. The next play, Payton goes into in talking about decision-making, the next play he goes into 5 wide, empty backfield. And you know how many carries Tyler Beatty ended up with in the rest of the game? 0. What? And here's why I bring it up. And we listen, we all love Javonte Williams. We love his story. It's inspirational. He has now gone 12 games dating back to last season with a yards per carry average of right at 3.1. Folks, that's not a starting running back in the NFL. On this day, Beatty, remember, let's do our math, see who's listening. 1 carry, 16 yards. Javonte Williams, 11 carries, 17 yards. which one is better? It's like the Sesame Street thing. Which one of these doesn't belong? Football, 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 cantaloupe. Like, give the guy a little bit of run. I mean, what could happen? He could get a 2-yard run? Like, it's not working. Now, some of that's on the line. Some of that's on the line. And that's what I want to get to next, is this idea of Peyton's decisions are hurting them. There's no way around it. It's his offense. Every statistical category since they benched Russell Wilson has gone down from 21 points to 14 points a game. It is this 14 points a game is conjuring images of Nathaniel Hackett when his offense averaged right at 15 points a game over 15 games. Hackett was a terrible coach. Again, what is Peyton's excuse? It reminds me, and I was talking to behind the glass there about this. He's a baseball guy like me. It reminds me of Jim Leyland when he took over the Rockies in 1999. He felt like he got sold a bill of goods. The pitching staff was terrible with John Thompson and Jamie Wright. Their bullpen is historically bad. If you go back and look up those numbers, remember, this is pre-Humidor. It's one of the worst pitching seasons in the history of baseball. Not history of the Rockies, baseball. Jim Leyland is a Hall of Famer. And for that one season, because the talent was so bad, because he couldn't adjust to Coors Field, he was a terrible manager. It doesn't mean he's a terrible manager, but for that season, he was. He couldn't gather and grasp how to coach this terrible team with no pitching. And at times when I watch Peyton, it's similar. Like, he so desperately wants this team to be one of his previous Saints teams, and it's not, and it's making him worse. So something to keep an eye on, because I want to know where his frustration level is going to be if they go 0-4. Because that right now, folks, Sean Payton is winless in September as the Broncos coach. So let's move on. Enough about Payton. Why is Bo Nix struggling? Again, part of it is linked to Payton because of the play calling. He dropped back 40 times again. It's not working with the inability to run. Now, is the inability to run because of the scheme, because of lack of execution? I talked to Ben Powers afterwards. I talked to Garrett Bowles afterwards. I mean, guys are like, don't have a clear answer. Powers told me it's personal. We've got to be better. You know, Bowles like, hey, it's frustrating. We don't really know. We got to look at the film, but we got to be better. They do. They do. Because Nix has no chance if they can't run. And it's the chicken and the egg thing. Part of the reason they can't pass is because teams know they can't run. When you can't run, they get up and they crowd the line of scrimmage because they know they can't get beat deep. And so we can't run because we can't pass deep, but we can't pass deep because we can't run. Figure one out, to trust it. And you got to give Tyler Beatty, you got to give whatever it is, you got to shake up the backfield. And if you want to bring up, they should have just kept Samaje Perine. Again, if I had known they were going to call the game this way, I would agree with you. If you're going to call the game this way where you're going to throw 40 times, then you should have kept Perine and Tim Patrick. My belief was you're going to run the football, kind of win boring, and ease Bo Nix in. We were talking about it off air here before the pod. I love the fact they started Bo Nix. There was no reason to wait based on what I saw in the preseason and based on those game plans. Why is Bo Nix struggling? Their game plans look nothing like those. And I get it. Some of those you were going against second stringers, but they weren't against the Packers in that Friday scrimmage. That was ones versus one. They look great. But we don't see the RPO. We don't see the naked bootlegs. We don't see the designed runs. If they were going to call the game this way, you should have just started Jared Stidham for the first month and let him wear. Let Stiddy. It ain't pretty, it's Stiddy. Let him go on 4. Who cares? And instead, we got Nix facing 4 straight former defensive coordinators as head coaches, back to back to back to back, running an offense that's designed for like Drew Brees circa 2012. That's what I'm saying. So why is he struggling? They're not running the ball. They don't throw deep. I don't want to say seeing ghosts, but his footwork is off. He's throwing off his back foot. He's not stepping up and driving the ball. A lot of the things we saw in preseason where he was decisive, accurate, on time, we're not seeing right now. And again, it's regular season, and the Seahawks defense is good, and the Steelers defense is frankly going to end up top 5. They're a great defense. But when everything gets sped up, you're seeing these rookie-type mistakes. He's got 4 picks now. four brutal. And then Payton said the one in the end zone yesterday that essentially lost the game was a broken route. You know, I had one of my sons was watching it because I'm typing and getting caught. He said it just looked like, you know, the one guy was the tri-state ended up intercepted. He starts in man. His guy carries across the field and just says, hey, I'm just going to stop here. And so man essentially became zone, and Nix threw it right to him. He obviously didn't expect him to be there. That happens. But as Nix, it can happen in the red zone when you can't score a touchdown. Like when they get down there, you can't turn it over. You got to get points at the very least. And that's a couple of times they've done that with Nix. They did it in Seattle. It only cost them 1 point because on the next play they got a safety. But they cannot turn the ball over in the red zone. They're not good enough for that. So Nix is struggling because the defenses are way better. The game plan looks nothing like what we saw in the preseason when we thought Sean was going to bend to Nix's strengths with bootlegs and one-side reads and quarterback runs. We're not seeing that. We're seeing them drop back an average of right at 45 times a game. And their offensive line is struggling. And they're not running the ball. It's all part of it, folks. And that's what I want. Quinn Miners talked about that after the game. Quinn is a captain. They paid him a lot of money. They paid McGlinchey a lot of money. They paid Ben Powers a lot of money. It's not working. So here's Quinn Miners on kind of what is going on with this offense and this run game.
Execution. I think you'll see it on tape, whether it be someone just missing one block or some type of movement that happens. We've got to continue on the front five, keep pointing the thumbs in, and we gotta fix this shit. Sorry, excuse my language.
Quinn, after an off season full of hope, is it surprising to have this offense struggle as much as it has the first 2 weeks of the season?
Off season and regular season are completely different things. So you get ready, you try to prepare as best you can for the regular season, and when it's finally here, there's going to be unexpected challenges and some adversity, and we're experiencing that adversity early, and so we got to continue to stick together, see the light at the end of the tunnel, and keep putting the pressure on us because it's on us at the end of the day, us five.
Was the game plan to get the run game going this week?
Yeah, there was definitely an emphasis on the run game this week, and it really sucks to fall short once again.
You're going on the road for basically the next 2 weeks, and you're not going to be home. Is this something that better be good for this football team, being together on the road away from everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, need it. We need to be together and take advantage of this trip as best we can. Yeah, it's going to be 2 fun road games.
Sean talked about the possibility of simplifying offensively going forward, maybe, or what he's asking of certain players. Is there something to that, maybe, about doing fewer things and trying to do those things better?
I don't think I would necessarily say that. I would just say the original point of execution, and just haven't been there.
Well, listen, Miners is being honest. It's on them. It's the old 5 fingers have to become a fist at the offensive line. It's just hard to believe that they've regressed like this, because last year at times they were really good offensively up front. And I think of the Cleveland game, 169 yards rushing. They'll tell you internally that was their best overall team game. Great defense, run the football, control the clock, physical identity. We haven't seen that. I think it starts with you got to look at your personnel. I don't know if you have a lot of options internally. If you think Wattenberg's still fine at center, you stick with him. But do you need to move an offensive lineman in? And I say this, Javonte Williams has to come off the bench. He has to be the second guy in right now. You just give him a breather. Let him watch the game, maybe see something different. But whether it's Tyler Beatty, whether it's McLaughlin, whether it's Blake Watson, somebody else has to get some run at back, because you cannot have your starting running back averaging 2 yards a carry. And I'm not saying it's all his fault, but sometimes, like with a pitcher, guys are making errors behind you. The pitcher ends up coming out, and you joke like the pitcher's in a slump he was never in. But sometimes you just have to change the mojo. And for me, you've got to look at starting somebody else at running back and then bringing Javonte off the bench. I think that's where it starts. Because right now, the only way, and I wrote about this during camp, is the only way for this team to get off to a decent start was to win boring. And everyone's like, oh, they're going to be great. They're going to score a bunch of runs. And it just doesn't happen that way in the league. And we look at rookie quarterbacks around the league. Jaden Daniels hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. Caleb Williams hasn't. Williams' stats have been very similar to Bo Nix. He's been terrible. The difference is the Bears defense is capable of winning a game by itself. Broncos defense is not. But I want to say this, and this is where we're going to end the pod here. Give the Broncos defense some credit here. They have played well enough to win both these games. Zach Allen has played out of his ass. I love the fact that it's just relentless playing because DJ Jones had a tough day up front. Allen did not. You look at what Jonathan Cooper has done. Riley Moss has been encouraging on the opposite side because Pat Surtain yesterday played, for me, his worst game of his career. Got called for 3 penalties, gave up a couple of – he didn't give up big shots, but gave up a couple of shots to Pickens. It was a tough day, which then goes back to how does Pat Surtain get a penalty on special teams? What is he doing on special teams? I got to get an answer to that too because that was kind of symbolic of a day of just odd/indefensible decisions. But this defense is keeping them in games. But Baker Mayfield's on fire. Tampa Bay has weapons with Godwin and Evans, and they're better offensively than any team the Broncos have faced. So that's why when you go down to Tampa now, you have to play a perfect game, and you're going to have to try to win it. Again, 17-13-ish. Like they just beat the Lions 20-16. That's the same way the Broncos would have to look to upset the Bucs. Because this schedule now, folks, when you look at what the Saints are doing, the Raiders just beat the Ravens. The Bucs are undefeated. They're 2-0 again for like the fourth time, like 4 straight years. And Todd Bowles, he likes blitzing as much as breathing. I mean, it sets up as another difficult matchup. And then you go to the Jets. They're not great, but they're better on paper than the Broncos. So it's not going to get any easier. And I'll say this. This is the time you find out who guys are because it's 2 games in. Are you going to play the victim? Or are you going to decide, like, let's make this personal. Let's do something about it. And for me, it starts up front with the offensive line. It starts with changing personnel, simplifying the offense. It starts with Payton kind of having a lobotomy here and just like everything I know about the past, the Saints is over. This is the team I have now. How do we win with this team? How do we best equip this offense for Bo Nix? How do we protect him? How do we put him in position to succeed? Because dropping him back an average of 45 times a game is not the answer. It's not. It's not. So look at the personnel. I think it's time to get some other receivers in there. It's time to get another running back in there. It's time to simplify the personnel groups. And it is time to give Bo Nix a better chance. Lean on your defense. Try to win ugly. Sneak a win. You win at Tampa, everything feels like it's possible again. Because you could beat the Jets. I'm not saying you would, but that's a winnable game. They're not great. So if you upset Tampa, then everything feels possible. But I cannot stress the importance of changing and being honest with where they are. Honest self-assessment, self-awareness are critical this week for the Broncos if they're going to get better. Because what they've done the first 2 weeks is a clear blueprint that will not work with a rookie quarterback and a rebuilding team moving forward. Folks, I could not do this without Mile High Sports and Nate Lundy, a big A behind the screen here, the producer. They are so great to me, and we love the attention and your guys' interest in this pod on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your family. We're going to have 2 a week, whether they win or not, folks. Darby Hoggett of Hoggett Injury Law, he's the best. And RBJ Glass, my guy, Jamie Haig. I couldn't do it without him as well. But Darby has been A1 from day one. Broncos Country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.